back, everybody. Thanks for watching. So this, a few weeks ago I stayed in this here, and so this is Zef here. This is the guy who I thought built it, but actually he didn't build it. It was his good wife, Mandy, built most of the work. So I want to say hello to Zef. How are you?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Yeah, a lot of work.
A fair bit of work, all right, yeah, but took 3 or 4 years, so we weren't in a hurry to do it. You know what I mean?
Project.
Yeah. Lockdown project before lockdown was invented. You know what I mean?
Yeah. God. And okay, we walk around and have a look at it.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me how you done it and everything?
Yeah. Should we give you? If you come over this side, you'll see. So we bought a bit of forestry across the road from us here.
Okay.
That was a pine forest.
Pine.
Mostly Sitka spruce.
Right.
But there were some large trees in it. Okay. And we'd been to Scandinavia and we'd seen the log cabins, and we thought, would we use the larch, because it's a fairly durable timber, would we use it to make a log cabin?
And these are larch trees?
These are all larch, yeah.
Okay.
And they were cut down in the forest across the road. It's about 200 metres away.
Right.
Cut down into the length we needed with a chainsaw, and then dragged down to here, where we then took the bark off.
One by one?
One by one, yeah.
One by one,
one
right.
by one, yeah. And our trees weren't the greatest, they weren't the straightest, so we couldn't make a big rectangular hut because the length of the poles, the taper was too great.
Oh,
like, so you have
okay.
the butt end, which is the fat end on the ground, and the top end would be thinner. So if you went very long, you know, there's a big discrepancy there, and also our trees weren't the straightest. So we decided to go for a hexagonal shape, 6-sided shape.
Okay.
So our logs could be shorter.
To suit the straighter parts of the tree. Right, okay.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier, so trees get thinner as they go up.
Yeah.
So you had to take that into account and flip the fatter one on the next run. Yeah,
so if you look at this here, you'll see where you've got, this is a butt end, so the butt end is the bottom of the tree, big one. Right. And then a smaller one, then a big one, then a smaller one.
Yes.
You see that? Otherwise your cabin would be off kilter. If you keep going, you know.
Okay.
So that's the way it works. And then each pole that you bring down, so they're 12 foot long.
Right. And
you put the first one down, you cut a notch in it. Or a saddle, really. You can see these saddles here. See that?
Yeah.
Right
there.
A saddle on each side. We did that with a chainsaw.
Right.
And then the next one, you cut a notch into it that sits onto that.
Yeah. And every one has to be done bespoke.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Each one, because each tree is different.
Yeah.
It's got different shapes. But you get into a fairly routine with these saddles. So that's the first cut that you make, and then when you've got it roughly in place, you have to lift the second log up.
Okay, yes.
Because you're going to trace the contours. If I show you here, right on this one, so if you've got this log here, we traced the shape of this log, the contours of it, onto the bottom of this one, using a special gadget, and then we cut out we did that on both sides, and you cut out a groove on the underneath of this, which then sits down perfectly on this.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And that must have taken, like, one log must have took you a day to do, did it?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, one log must have took you like at least
because if you look at it here, you've got your score lines were over here. Right, and then you mark those.
You're doing all of this,
and you, with a chainsaw, you run along those two score lines.
Oh, okay.
And then you have to excavate all of this material. Now, you could do that with an adze. An adze is like a sideways axe. I have one here, I'll show it to you.
An adze, it's called.
An adze, yeah. So that's the adze.
Oh, right, so you've done a lot of the gouging the wood out with that?
Yeah, with that. And then we got...
Have a look at that there.
Yeah. And then we got another gadget for our...
Jason, that's sharp, alright.
You know, what are they called? Angle grinder.
Angle grinder, yeah.
You can get a special head for those, which has a chainsaw indentations.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, and you can use that then to gouge out as well.
Oh yes, yes.
A lot of carvers, wood
use
carvers, you might see these really fancy carvings that they do. You know, sometimes trees. There's one in St Anne's Park.
I know it. Yeah,
yeah.
We photographed it one time.
Yeah,
it's amazing work.
Yeah, so they'd use a chainsaw for a lot of it, but they'd also use this angle grinder with a special chainsaw head on it.
Oh right, okay.
So it's a disc that has like a chainsaw.
Chains.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have a chain. It just has the same shape.
Oh right, okay.
You know, it's for gouging out wood.
So that made it a lot easier then,
Yeah.
like using this for the whole log cabin could have took you a century.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you drop when you've started that, you drop it down.
Yeah.
You drop the log down to see is it sitting nicely.
Right.
And then you might have to lift it up again to, you know, take out a bit more. But you can see there, that one there, like there's hardly a gap.
Yeah.
Between this log and that log.
Yeah.
You know?
There isn't a gap.
Yeah.
Like.
Now, in some places in the world, they don't go to that trouble. They just put one log on top of the next.
Right. And then paste it.
And then you have little gaps, chinks they're called.
Right, okay.
Right? And they fill that with mud.
With mud, yeah.
Or with moss, and sometimes they even will put a little lat.
A lat of wood, like along it, like.
Yeah, to stop the wind getting in, you know, stop the drafts.
Right,
you know. Now in Norway, in places, that's for taking the bark off the trees.
Oh right, okay.
So when you fell the tree, we pull it down here. Now you're pulling it over.
Did you have to let them dry for any amount of time?
No, we didn't.
Okay,
really. So you take the bark off immediately. So once we dragged it down, then we took the bark off. You basically, you know, cut the bark, and then you just peel it off with one of these.
All right.
And it comes off relatively easy.
Okay.
If it dries, oh my God, you can't get the bark off.
It's a nightmare, is it?
Yeah. And the reason you have to take the bark off is if the bark was still on this, water would get in behind the bark.
Oh right, and damp. You'd be in a damp thing.
Rot your timber.
And do you know how many trees, roughly? Okay, these are about 12 foot. Yeah. So how big were the trees? How big were?
They would have been 3 times the length, you know.
So one tree, 3 logs.
Sometimes maybe 2 logs, depending, you know.
So looking at it there, roughly, you've got 4 trees for each side of this, and you've 6 sides, so you've got 24 trees.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's without us going up above.
Yeah.
The roof as well.
Yeah. So the roof has another 6 big beams there, you know.
Yeah. So everything was based on these 4 boulders. That's a job itself. Well, getting them into place.
Yeah, no, each boulder. So 6 boulders. We were going to build a concrete base for them, but we decided no, let's keep it as kind of natural as we could, and let's just get the boulders. Again, we just pulled them into place. There was a couple around, rolled them down the hill when we could, used block and tackle and levers, got them into position, and then, you know, jacked them up and stuff under them to get the right height, that type of thing, you know.
Perfect,
yeah.
And then you have your spirit level, you put your first ones across, everything's level, let's build.
That's it. And this is the gadget for scribing the logs. So it's like a dividers. It's got a pin here and a pencil. Now I think we used a marker instead of the pencil, right?
Right.
And what this does, it's got a spirit level here. So basically you take this, if we were going to scribe the shape of this one onto the bottom of that one, this one would have been, there was obviously no logs above it, it would have been lifted up by about 6 inches, and then you would have gone basically like that, see, and drawn the line. The spirit level is to make sure that you keep the thing level all the time.
Okay.
Right? And then you, if you do that correctly, you'll have an exact copy of this line onto the bottom of that one.
Right, yeah.
You know?
And then it's a matter of then just working those 2 pieces and bang, bringing them together.
So you have to lift it, drop it down, check to see if it's sitting right. Sometimes you'd have a knot maybe that's interfering. You'd lift it up again, you take a bit more out, drop it down until you're happy with the...
Fairly pernickety,
It's a lot of lifting and that type of thing.
And then wood will contract and expand and change the shape, so...
there's a bit of that, there's a settling, you know.
There is a settling then,
settles. But the other thing is when the wood will contract and it'll crack, and ideally you don't really want a crack like this,
right?
Because the idea is that this groove,
yeah,
because it's the shortest distance to the centre,
right.
the crack will usually be there.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is perfect because that's the underside of the log. You're not going to get damp going in there.
Okay.
Whereas this one here, you could get damp, technically, rain going in. Now, the other thing...
But it's so thick as well, like, you know?
Yeah. The other thing is that where in the countries where they have these,
yeah,
they don't have the climate we have. Our climate is damp.
Yeah.
And it's hopeless for wood.
I think it was Ray Mears or one of those guys said Ireland's the wettest wood he's ever been.
Yeah.
It was either Bear Grylls but one of them stated about how damp our wood is. I mean, sometimes lighting fires, it takes us like half an hour, 40 minutes because you just can't find dry wood. Yeah. You know?
And so in Norway, for example, they have a much colder winter. Yeah. It's snow and it's a bit of ice, but that tends to be dry cold.
Yeah.
If you get my drift.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And whereas we have a damp climate, so it's mist and rain.
Oh, okay.
So we had to put a big overhang on this.
Yes.
Right? So the drip line, there's a drip line here. When this is raining, it's dripping down here.
And protects this.
Yeah, protects this. If we didn't do that, this would eventually rot.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, if it stays dry and the wind is around it, it should last.
It should last forever.
A long time. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, will we have a look inside?
Yeah.
Or will we talk about the roof?
Yeah, no problem.
Because I know.
Yeah.
Well, you needed to do it so you could make out your roof in here, which we'll go in and have a look at now. Yeah. Oh, sorry, look. Hey.
So it's called a reciprocal frame roof. Now most roofs on houses are like that.
Yeah.
And they're pushing out like this on the walls.
Yeah.
So there's cross ties in them to stop them spreading.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So because this is a hexagonal shape, we had to go for a different roof style. So this one is the 6 logs are kind of resting on each other. Okay. So the next one would be on this finger. Yeah. And they go around and and
go higher up every time.
Not higher up, but around. Right. So the next one will be lying on that finger and around. Okay. And they actually then hold themselves up.
Oh wow.
You know.
They're
so the pressure is
pushing down,
not out.
Right. And where did you come up with that? Did you study
we'd seen it in a couple of they have these nowadays they're in the UK they have these burial areas, they're in woodlands.
Right, okay.
You know, because some people don't like graveyards.
Oh yeah.
So it's like a woodland like here and people get buried, there's no gravestones or anything.
Oh wow.
But they would have sort of little log cabins around the place for people to
go and grieve and mourn and visit.
And they had that sort of roof because it's kind of nice because there was a hole in the top where the light's coming down.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
The light of God.
Whatever.
God's light,
and we kind of liked the look of that, so we said we'd go with that, you know.
Yeah, amazing.
So then we had
get a shot of up there, Max. Just
so that's just a bit of a copper, I think.
Copper, right?
Yeah, and then that was open for a while.
Yeah.
But we decided to put the, if you call it, the cowl on there. Yeah. And then we tried to make the shingles ourselves, but the timber we had wasn't suitable.
Okay.
You know.
So we
ended up buying those. They're cedar shingles. You know.
Oh yeah, they're nice, but.
You know, they're just tacked into place.
With a little nail, and then on top and topped. Yeah.
And does the job quite nicely. So that roof is on there, I'd say 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, and it
hasn't moved an inch.
No, the shingles will, they'll curve a little bit and that type of thing, and they go a bit darker.
It's a credit that they're still looking so well, you know. Still holding out after 12 years.
Yeah, so it's fine.
Will we
so
go inside?
Yeah.
So we're inside here now, guys. We're gonna take a look at this.
So at the bottom we have the 6 big rocks supporting the walls.
Okay.
And they could support the floor joists at the outside. Okay. But we needed to create a support for the joists in the middle.
Oh right. Okay.
So underneath that is we just made that out of bricks, like
bricks, right?
Yeah, breeze blocks.
Okay.
And then we built it up.
Yeah.
And then we decided we would put a fire in the middle.
Right, okay.
And we'd make, with a bit of shuttering, this
Okay.
sort of...
the MDF and then pour the concrete in.
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
shape
So
of
the
it,
idea is you can have a fire, but you know, if this was burning and it fell here, well, it's grand. It's not falling on the timber floor.
Yeah, of
You
course,
know.
yeah. Yeah.
And that, so from a safety point of view, so a bit like a table. We saw something similar when we went to Finland, where they have these sort of Nordic huts,
Yeah.
you know, like that, and they would go skiing, and then they go into them, they light a fire, they cook up their dinner, their hot dogs or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
and it's really nice. So that's where we got that idea, you know. You see, so the 6 logs go round in a bit of a circle, but one is leaning on the next one.
Yes.
Right, and then the other end is leaning on the wall plate of the cabin.
Yes.
So that roof is actually holding itself up with all the pressure coming down.
Yeah.
So it's solid as a rock. Now we did put in a few rebars, see them there?
Yeah.
Just to make sure there was no movement in it, or the storm didn't blow it off or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it's a sort of an unusual sort of a roof, and that gives you this hole in the middle that in some places they just put a window in.
Right.
But in our case, we left it open for the chimney.
The chimney to get all the smoke out. Yeah.
And we just put the copper cowl on it just to keep the rain out. From our point of view is that we have 15 acres of woodland here.
Okay.
Right, now it's not a commercial woodland, it's not one with pine trees that are going to be cut down in 35 years. Yeah. This is an amenity woodland that we use for the benefit of nature, but also for environmental awareness, environmental education, ecology and all of that.
Okay, yeah.
So when you have a woodland, you're allowed to build a forestry hut. So usually they're corrugated iron sheds.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So,
but we decided, no, we're not going to build a corrugated shed for our tools and all of that.
yeah.
Right? We're going to actually build this cabin so that when we get people here to look at our woodland, they can sit in here and have a chat or whatever. And then they go out and they do their ecology studies or...
excellent,
that's really the purpose of it, you know.
Kind of like Scandinavian inspired.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Norway and Finland.
Yeah.
You've been to all of these countries.
Spent a fair bit of time in Scandinavia.
Scandinavia, amazing.
You see, here our timber, well, at the turn of the 1900s, you know, the 20th century, Ireland was the least forested country in Europe.
Wow.
So they tried a load of different tree types to see which would grow best, and they discovered that Sitka spruce grows the quickest in Ireland. It's the perfect damp climate, grows really quick. But it's not great timber for
burning.
No, well, for construction.
Oh, right, okay.
Right, compared to Scandinavian timber or hardwoods, and that. So in Norway, their timber grows slower because they've got a much longer winter season.
Okay.
So their growth rings are millimetres apart.
Oh, right.
Our growth rings on Sitka spruce could be a centimetre a year.
Oh, right, okay.
Which makes it weak from a structural point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and also it would rot fairly quickly, you know.
Yeah, pine's not great.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough hardwoods then?
We've very little hardwood.
Oak,
yeah, very little. And most of the commercial forestry that you see here, you know, all the plantations, that gets harvested and that's turned into MMDF, you know, the high density fiberboard.
Yes, yeah.
It's just milled and then
compressed into these shapes.
Yeah, that's what it's used for. Or it's used for stuff like decking and fencing and railings and that type of thing. It's not used that much in construction.
Right.
And so what we have is 15 acres of native woodland. So trees that are from Ireland originally and that are a benefit to wildlife.
Yes.
And that's what we have here. 5 acres around the house and 10 acres across the road.
And all this woodland in the back, that's yours there as well, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that. That's birch trees, is it?
There's some birch in it, but it's around the house it's a bit mixed because we put in a variety of stuff, but it's mostly oak, birch, Scots pine,
right.
Bit of rowan, and then we put in a few, I'd call them exotic trees. We have chestnut, sweet chestnut, hornbeam, walnut, a few
walnuts.
A few of those,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Just to get a bit of variety in.
Yeah,
you know?
excellent, excellent.
You know?
You could have a look at that later if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
We can
Because
have a look at
there's
the
two
trees.
different types. One of the woodlands we have
Yeah.
was unenclosed, so
Okay.
the trees were planted without a deer fence.
Okay.
And you'll notice a big difference between that and the enclosed woodland where we did put a deer fence in.
Deer fence. Oh, so there will be a lot of deers in the one without the fence.
Yeah, I mean, deers in Ireland are just multiplying.
Are they really?
Yeah, exponentially, because there's no predator for them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
And isn't there culling season?
There is a culling season, but because of the Sitka spruce plantations,
Yeah.
the deers can very easily run into the cover of the forest,
Oh,
and it's
right.
hard to cull them.
Oh, right, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They just go in there, once they hear a bang, the rest of them are all, you know.
Gone, yeah.
Yeah.
You might get one and then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, okay.
And the herbivore, like a deer, eats every minute of the wake. Like they're not.
They never stop eating.
No, they never. No, because there's not much nutrients in the sort of grasses they're eating, so they have to eat.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why anywhere that's not deer fenced, you get no natural regeneration. Sure, I'll show you outside.
Right, okay.
Okay, so when we finished the walls of the place,
Yeah.
only afterwards did we cut out the door
Right.
frame here, or the door opening. And it's kind of nerve-wracking because you've built this log cabin and
Yeah.
now you're taking a chainsaw
To it.
to it and knocking out those ones
Yeah.
and that. But you have to leave one beam solid above the ones you've cut out.
Okay.
That's why you have to duck when you come in here. You couldn't cut this all the way up
I
because that would
understand
destabilise
now,
the wall, this
Yeah.
whole wall, you know.
But you've two beams then as well.
Yeah, but that other
even
one,
better.
that other one there is actually put in later.
It's a support one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
okay. Yeah.
And
And I see that some parts you cemented it as well.
yeah, that's just again to
Now-
stop a little bit of the drafts.
Okay, so who done most of the work? Your
Well,
wife?
she was the sort of engineer.
Oh, right,
And
okay.
you know, attention to detail. I don't do attention to detail.
Oh, right, you just do
chainsaw, and
yeah.
the
So,
lugging and that. And then we had
Okay.
friends helping us, you know.
so Mandy designed,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
She took it,
Yeah.
she was the architect.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was sort of learn as you go, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, brilliant, brilliant. And was most of the work done carried out in the summer?
Ah, no, I mean, whenever, yeah, you come down and do a bit, you know, if you felt like it. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of nice work because you're working one log at a time,
Right.
and you get the first 6 in. That's your first row, and then you're
Right.
kind of putting a few more on top of that, and you say, oh, we'll be finished the second row now next week, and you know.
Yeah, yeah, and then you start getting more
Yeah.
motivated, and
Yeah.
all your other projects get left behind.
Yeah, getting the roof beams in was harder because they're longer poles,
Right.
you know,
Oh,
and
yes.
they're heavier poles. So, and not only that, you're kind of lifting them.
Above.
Yeah, so
higher
we
than
had to
that.
put a sort of we put a scaffolding frame here because you have to
Right.
hold them in position until you get the last one in
One in,
place.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
To
It was a
bind
bit
them
of a
all.
job.
To bring them all and bind the strength.
Yeah.
And